Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget Miller's Mission coming up very soon. And we'll be at the Walmart near you, collecting turkeys, collecting cash, collecting clothes for our friends at the Boise Rescue Mission. Joining us now, Dr. Michael Gullion. Dr. Gullion, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Kevin, good morning. Good to be on the show again.
Now, hey, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about the end of the world as we know it, or the end of life. End of life as we know it, sir.
Well, and my newest book is titled The End of Life as We Know It, Ominous News from the Frontiers of Science. And, Kevin, I didn't write the book to scare people. There's no value in that. I wrote it so that people's eyes would be wide open about what's going on right here and right now in labs all over the world in 4 different areas. Number 1, the World Wide Web. Number 2, robots and artificial intelligence. Number 3, surveillance technology and privacy. And number 4, genetic engineering. And when people's eyes are open to what's going on, they get glimpses in the headlines, but this book puts it all together, gives you a complete up-to-date picture. It's an easy read. Then you're going to be better able to protect yourself and your loved ones, Kevin. That's why I wrote the book.
I don't know if that's a great way to start the morning with the end of life as we know it. Is this a good thing?
It could have been worse, Kevin. It could have been just the end of life. But no, it's the end of life as we know. So look on the positive side. Listen, I'm a very positive guy, and there's a lot of positive stuff in the book, seriously. Things like neural prosthetics. I tell the story of a gentleman who is a power linesman in Tennessee, lost both arms because he touched a high voltage line. And now doctors are able to fit him out with arms that he can move with his thoughts. It's pretty remarkable stuff. But then there are unsettling things, like it or not. This is the world we live in. There are many, many unsettling things and some downright dangerous things. And I want people to know about them because I don't want them to be hit upside the head without any warning. This way they can prepare themselves, they can protect themselves and their communities and even our country, steer us in a good direction. Okay,
I have to hit you with this. So are we talking about a cyborg or the $6 million man?
Well, kind of both. In terms of robots, it's interesting because there's a story this morning on the news, Bloomberg broke it, that Asia's biggest restaurant chain is announcing that in 3 days on October 28th, they're opening an all-robot restaurant in Beijing, China, with the intention of maybe expanding to up to 5,000 restaurants worldwide. So, again, it gives you a glimpse of what's going on the robot front. Look, when the robots and artificial intelligence are being called the 4th industrial revolution. The first one was steam power. It replaced horse and buggies. The second one was electricity. It replaced, things like oil lamps and gas lamps and mechanical devices. The third industrial revolution was the computer. It replaced things like typewriters. But this 4th revolution of artificial intelligence and robots, Kevin, is a horse of a different color because it is specifically designed to replace us, you and me. And so there are studies coming out that estimate that for every robot a company hires to do some work, it is unemploying 5.6 people. So it remains to be seen whether the AI revolution will create more jobs than it kills, the way the computer revolution killed 3 million jobs but created 20 million, including Silicon Valley. And I know right there in Boise, you guys are getting the spillover from Silicon Valley. I was there recently visiting. It's amazing what's going on there.
Now, wait a minute. You were here in the Treasure Valley and you didn't drop us a line?
I know. Well, I was in there for literally less than 24 hours, Kevin. I would have normally, I promise, but I was telling Ray, your producer, that Riverwalk, the Greenway, it's a beautiful city. But the point is, because this industrial revolution is specifically designed to replace us, it remains to be seen whether it's going to create more jobs than kill them. My guess is that it's not, because robots will also be created to service themselves, or other robots will be created to service and maintain robots. So it's not like past industrial revolutions.
The end of life as we know it. What a great way to start our morning here. Dr. Michael Gullion with you. Okay, are we talking Skynet, the Terminator? Are we talking about one day that we're going to, create something that replaces us?
Well, we kind of already are, and that's why this book is not pie in the sky, things that are going to happen in the sweet by and by, maybe one day. It's not Michael Gillen's prediction of what's going to happen. These are just the facts, and these 4 sections that I have more than 1,000 footnotes, Kevin, on this book. I'm just serving up on a silver platter in one book, cover to cover, a complete picture, a complete up-to-date picture of what's going on. In terms of warfare, yes, countries, especially Russia, has been very vocal about the Kalashnikov. I quote in the book, for example, statements from the Kalashnikov group in Russia that they are creating these kind of neural networks, and that's a fancy way of saying neural net terminators. These are robots that think like humans. The neural net is an expression which I explain in the book. It just simply means artificial intelligence that tries to simulate the way the human mind works, but much, much faster. But not just Terminator-like. I mean, we already have like little R2-D2 type robots that have machine guns and that are being fitted out with X-ray vision that can go ahead of troops and surveil. I talk about these little tiny palm-sized drones called Perdex. The Pentagon is developing them based on some MIT grad student idea he came up with, but that you basically release these things in flocks, and they can turn on a dime, and they communicate with each other instantaneously almost. So there's a lot going on the warfare front. And I have to, Elon Musk and others signed a letter that said, oh, please don't create these war machines. But at the same time, people like Elon Musk, who is big into driverless cars and stuff like that, are developing the very technology that's going to make these Terminators autonomous like robot warriors. So people just need to be informed, Kevin, about what's going on. So think of this book as a kind of a survival guide for what's going on right now and in the immediate future. It's forewarned is forearmed.
I'm with you. But
Thank you, sir.
I'm more along the lines of,
I know.
This is not good for us. Let's continue on because it's fascinating. The 4 sections in your book, The Spy, How Average People Voluntarily and Happily Destroy Our Vanishing Privacy. I always like when people say, we have a right to privacy, yet we post everything on social media. So have we lost that?
Well, yeah, hello. I mean, exactly. Look, I tell against stories. Like, I have a 19-year-old son, and I've basically been advising him, look, just assume you have no privacy. When you're on the Internet, zero privacy. It's like opening your front door wide open and inviting the world into your bedroom. I tell some interesting stories in the book. One is of a little girl in Dallas, Texas. She used Alexa, the Amazon Echo device that people have in their homes, to order herself all kinds of things. She was like a 7-year-old kid. The parents were clueless. They didn't know this stuff was coming until it got there at the home in the mail. But this is the punchline, Kevin. This is the insanity you're talking about here. Instead of learning a lesson from that, I quote the mother in this book as saying afterwards, well, now we have to whisper around the house. What? I mean, why don't you just ditch the thing? Why do you need Alexa to tell you what the temperature is or to play your favorite music or to order your pizza? How lazy have we become? But that's how intoxicated we have become with technology. Another story. We're heading into the holidays, right? So mom and dad, grandma and grandpa are going to be thinking about what toys to buy to their little loved ones. Well, there's a whole slew of smart toys now on the market, and they'll be, front row and center in the next month or two. Things like Hello Barbie, Kayla, Hero watches. Well, I tell a story, of a plush toy maker. And this is a plush toy where, let's say, grandma can record a message, send it by the Internet to the plush toy. The heart of the plush toy blinks on and off, telling the kid, hey, you've got a message. The kid presses the paw of the plush toy and listens to the recorded message. Sounds lovely, sounds sweet, sounds wonderful. But I tell the story of a hacker who used a special search engine that now exists to locate these Internet-activated devices. We call them the Internet of Things, IoTs. I talk about them in the book. Hacked into these plush toys and managed to access the photos of these kids, their personal information, and also the recorded message. So this is the kind of world we now live in where we are voluntarily buying things, bringing them into the home, thinking they're doing wonderful things, and maybe in some cases they are. But you have the devil to pay, and people have to know about this in order to protect themselves and their loved ones.
Well, and they can know it by buying your book, The End of Life as We Know It. Dr. Michael Gillian with us here on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. So we've gone over how the Terminators are going to get us. We've gone over how the toys are spying on us. What about the information superhighway? It was created for good. Is the web really good for us?
It's interesting. Tim Berners-Lee invented it in 1989. I tell the whole story. We don't have time to get into it now. He's now Sir Tim Berners-Lee. He was knighted by the Queen for inventing the World Wide Web. He gave it away for free, Kevin, because he was hoping that it would bring the world together, and he felt that it was too powerful for one individual to own, even himself. He could have kept it for himself, man. He could have copyrighted. He would be a gazillionaire by now. But he gave it away, and he now laments what has happened. And what I find very, very interesting, Kevin, is that the people who are involved in co-founding like Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, these are the titans of Silicon Valley. They are now coming out publicly and apologizing for what they have wrought. What's happened is that this powerful interconnectivity, which was meant to bring us together, is tearing us apart. And worse than that, and I mentioned I had a 19-year-old son. He's part of Gen Z. I talk in the book about a psychologist who has spent her whole career studying generations, like my grandfather's generation, father's generations, our generation, now our kids' and grandkids' generations. And she says, I don't say it, she says it, that she has never seen anything like what's going on with the young generation right now. There are unprecedented levels of depression, of isolation, of loneliness, of suicide, and she puts it at the feet of social media. This has disrupted interpersonal relationships so greatly now that these kids do not know how to relate to one another in a healthy way. So you tell me, has the World Wide Web become a good thing, a force for the good or a force for the bad? It's terrible. People are streaming murders, torture, suicide online. Just yesterday there was a story about a woman in Missouri whose autistic son, a video went viral on the World Wide Web. Some teenagers were holding a gun to her autistic son, forcing him to his knees and asking him to kiss their feet. This is what's going on the World Wide Web. It's heinous. But unless people know about this stuff, Kevin, I know I sound like a broken record.
No, Dr. Gillian.
But unless people know what's going on, they can't protect themselves and their loved ones.
I totally get it, but I don't know if it's 1984, Huxley's Brave New World. We've seemed to, maybe it's the video games where we have decided to promote through social media, through videos, depravity.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's in us, and it's, you know what it is like in the World Wide Web. In each of the sections, Kevin, I have a chapter called Memory Lane, because basically I take people by the hand and I show them how we got to where we are. In the case of the World Wide Web, I say, look, we began with the unaided voice. And I tell the story of about a preacher, a British preacher who holds the record for reaching the largest crowd with his unaided voice. But then what was the first innovation that amplified the voice? It was the megaphone. And then it went on from there. And now we've gotten to the point where the World Wide Web is basically magnifying our, what shall we say, our hateful traits. It's always been there. But now we have something that magnifies it.
And again, you know, before any of these electronic devices, there was radio. But radio had standards. And, you know, to get on the radio and TV later, you had to have standards. But today, there is no regulation. And again, people say, well, we can regulate. I don't think you can regulate that. The cat is out of the bag. You know, Dr. Gillian, any idea how to win back these young people that would rather text you sitting next to you than have a conversation?
Yeah. I talk about that in the book. And you're right, with like you on the radio or on TV. And I was at ABC News for 14 years. We have to have a broadcast license. You have to meet certain standards. The World Wide Web is the wild, wild west. But there is hope, and I talk about it in the book. We don't have time to get into it in detail, but I talk about two different approaches to try to bring this wild, wild west under control. And there are the top-down, which is kind of the government regulations, government stepping in. That's also maybe Facebook stepping in and imposing algorithms and robots and, you know, ways of policing the World Wide Web. But then there's the bottom-up. And I believe, Kevin, that it's going to be a combination of both. Because when you look back at the the real Wild Wild West, and I compare it in the book to a town in the real Wild Wild West, and ask the question: how did we tame the West? How did we civilize the West? And I think we're going to have to do the same thing. That it's going to be a combination of top down, bottom up. You know, the bad sheriff coming into town, but also the townspeople joining with the sheriff to bring law and order. And I see that happening. Also, I was at a college the other day speaking. I had a kid, an undergraduate, a sophomore, guiding me, giving me the tour. And he said to me, you know, I've been sober for like 3 weeks. And I looked at him like, what are you talking about, sober for 3 weeks? He was talking about his addiction to the social media. He cut the cord voluntarily, and he had basically ditched his iPhone and social media for 3 weeks. He's very proud of himself. And that's what's happening, Kevin. Things have gotten so bad. People are now opening their eyes and saying, you know what? Nobody's forcing me to have Alexa in the home. Nobody's forcing me to go on Facebook. Nobody's forcing me to have my iPhone with me 24/7. And so they are taking control of their lives. And I think that is the solution to the future, when we all rise up and start making some wise decisions.
Dr. Gillian, we could go on, and maybe we will in a future date. The end of life as we know it. A rather chilling way to start the morning, but you certainly have woken us up as always, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure, Kevin, and I do hope that people will read the book so they can arm themselves for what's happening now and in the immediate future. But thank you, Kevin, and my love to all of you all in Boise, Idaho. It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
Take care, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. There we have it. R&R, you're next. We'll talk about the midterms and your thoughts on, there we go, Ray Amaya, the end of life as we know it. The end of the world as we know it. Who would have thought REM 20, 30 years ago was right with that song? You're listening to Kevin Miller. We're still with you on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you. Thank you for waking up on the right side. They don't get much righter than R&R. Good morning, R&R. How are you?
Okay, Millie. And the militia is alive and well all over the Treasure Valley. I wish someday we could hear you clear over in Teutonia and Driggs and clear into Wyoming. But as of right now, Star is, without a doubt, Idaho at its best. So if you ever get a chance to run for commissioner of the great incorporated town of Star, I totally advocate. The man who has the anatomy of a bell pepper, wears Crocs, and looking for a kickball tournament. See, I spent a lot of time in Gold's Gym in a younger age with the man, probably about your height, and he came from actually Pennsylvania. Taught me everything I know about working out at Gold's Gym. But when you're grounded and rooted like you are, Crocs, without a doubt, beat cowboy boots 100%. I always say real men wear bare feet and snowshoes.
Right.
But okay, Star. When you laid down the beauty of Star yesterday, you left out one of my favorite, which is Star Tire and Auto, and the Merc. Again, you are the monarch of the Merc. So now
wait a minute, and we can't talk too much about Star because we're going to alienate the entire audience. But I think the monarch or the Merc would have to be Governor Otter. He lives there. You got Russ Smurs. You got a lot of big stars in Star.
You try going in there sometime without your entourage.
You know, Star is like the Hollywood, the Beverly Hills of the Treasure Valley.
I concur. The Weimar, all of it, though. If you can do anything about the encroachment.
Ooh.
Oh, my gosh, who? So I'm going to advocate one more time for Newt Bueller, and we got to save Oregon. I would love someday to go back to Oregon. I refused to set foot in the state.
I'd love to go annex Eastern Oregon into Idaho.
I concur. And then we'll get the stagecoach line running from John Day, Oregon.
That's what we should have asked all these people that were running for governor. We should have said, why don't we annex Eastern Oregon?
Brad Little will do it. He wears cowboy boots for a good reason, because he's got a huge herd of beautiful husbandry, taking care of cattle up in Long Valley, and but you got to never forget our allies over in Oregon when it's time to elect a new governor. And one last thing, the lieutenant governor's race is probably just as important. And if it's got a Democrat seal next to it, just don't.
Hey, you know something, Arnar? I'm going to tell you a little secret. Okay?
Yep.
Ray Amaya, hardest working guy in broadcasting. Ray works to get the big guests. You know how we get the big guests? It's Ray Amaya's hard work. And we made a decision, or I made a decision when we're talking about these candidates that want your vote. Not one of them, well, there has been one, has contacted us about coming on. And that's cool, because usually they're boring anyway. And it's not like we're saying, so we kind of run a test between ourselves and saying, are they ever going to come on? If we don't call them, and during the primary, Ray called them, I called them to get them on all the time because we thought it was important. But, sometimes you can't do their job for them, just you and me talking.
Well, just lure them in with a set of Crocs and bring your 3 Dachshunds.
I tried to do that. I tried to do that with Paulette Jordan, and they hung up on me.
No, Paulette, hey, you already laid enough smackdown on Paulette that you ought to have a bodyguard. So that's just my professional opinion.
To Paulette, R&R, I got to run.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's right, Star, the Beverly Hills of the Treasure Valley. Well, we learned something new this morning. How about how to get to work safely and on time, traffic?
7's Eric Gebert.
Coming up next, the latest on the packages and the caravan, and you with me, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Out to Rachel Sutherland, Fox News Radio. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin.
So here we have it, the caravan continuing, knocked off the front pages by all these packages being sent, but they are still coming to America.
That's right. A few of them have dropped off. We've heard that some have accepted asylum offers and some have gotten sick. And unfortunately, we heard the other day someone fell off a truck and died. And so this is a dangerous journey for sure. There's not a whole lot of shelter. It seems like they're just sleeping outdoors. I don't know where they're getting stuff to eat or even clean water. But they're traveling through Mexico, and the question is, will they come through McAllen, Texas, or over through Tijuana over the California border, which is the sanctuary state? They're thinking it could be easier. That's a lot farther, of course. And then there's also Caravan 2.0, Kevin, forming in Honduras, and they're saying they're going to take the same path. So the president is still upset about this, still saying he's going to send U.S. troops to the border. The question is, in what capacity? What will they be doing? How many? And will this group actually make it? I mean, it's a long way. They're still about 1,000 miles away, and if they're on foot, that could be weeks and weeks before they arrive.
Indeed, although some people are saying they're going to jump on a train or trucks and wondering about that, it is a troubling story. Has the president commented on this anymore, considering what happened yesterday? That was the major news throughout the day.
I think he's been pretty focused on what's going on with these packages, and we're hearing about more of them. There are bomb squads, trucks out near former Vice President Joe Biden's home in Delaware, because apparently there's been one out in the mail that was addressed to the former Vice President. The White House has been reacting to this. The President last night talking about this and really pointing. He actually tweeted this morning, pointing the finger at the media as being part of the problem, saying that they're really stoking up a lot of the controversy. He's saying a big part of the anger we see today is caused by the purposely fake and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media. So he's pointing the fingers. He's also saying there's going to be a thorough investigation and this is going to be dealt with. But this is right here before the midterms. This is obviously a huge storyline. Can't be overstated. How big this is and how upsetting it is to people on both sides.
And speaking of the midterms, the president continues to hit the road, continues to campaign.
Yeah, he was out last night in Wisconsin and rallying the base there, and he'll be continuing, I think. I mean, I don't think there's any change in plans because of all these suspicious packages. We'll see how this evolves. But he was out in Nevada over the weekend. He was in Texas earlier this week for Ted Cruz, and really it looks like Republican strategy appears to be to hold on to the Senate. I think a lot of analysts are looking at the situation in the House and seeing that some of those seats could go, especially in California. A lot of those could flip, like Dana Rohrabacher and some others out there who are in danger of losing their seats. But the strategy is to hold on to the Senate. But we won't know until after November 7th. We just won't know. And the polling, with President Trump with a high approval rating heading into the midterms may help Republicans. But I think we all know that we need to look at these polls and just kind of keep it real,
Indeed, of course. Your friend Mr. Jordan is in town, Jim Jordan.
Oh yeah, he's making the rounds as well. And
believe it or not, he's coming to Idaho. He's going to campaign for Congressman Fulcher here, soon to be Congressman Fulcher, Congressman Labrador leaving. But I know I totally threw you off, and I apologize for that. But I go,
okay.
Finally, I've got something to give to you.
Well, one thing I can tell you, Kevin, is that pretty much the Hill is empty. Although I think that George Papadopoulos is supposed to go behind closed doors with some of the members of the House Judiciary and Oversight Committees today. So there has to be, some lawmakers over there. But it's been pretty quiet on the Hill because they're all out campaigning, like you mentioned, Jim Jordan, and probably others who are hitting the campaign trail. But let's see, because George Papadopoulos, he was the first one to plead guilty in the whole Russia probe. He's saying that it was really that he was set up. So that's what he's going to try to go and tell lawmakers today, if that's even held. I mean, with everything going on with these packages, we'll just have to see.
Rachel, I know you're busy. Do you have 2 seconds or you got a bolt?
No, I think I'm all right now.
I just wanted you to comment on the hidden battle going on for the Speaker of the House if the Republicans maintain Kevin McCarthy. Again, we're not really on the trail, so to speak. We're off the grid, off the trail. McCarthy's been in town for some meetings. Now we've got Jim Jordan. Are those the two front runners if the Republicans maintain the control of the House? If so, they seem to be campaigning for it already.
Yeah, they do. And I would think that maybe, unless Steve Scalise has said he's not interested, here's the thing about Jim Jordan and folks who have been part of the Freedom Caucus. That could be spelling trouble for Jim Jordan just because he will be seen as maybe too far to the right or maybe as someone who doesn't play well with others. It's also going to need to be somebody who can work well with the president. And I think Kevin McCarthy has shown that he can do that. He seems to be someone, obviously he would have to play a very key role in brokering the tax breaks package that the president has touted as being such a success. So you look at some of these faces, and it is questionable, making you wonder, okay, who is going to take, let's assume that Republicans even have control of the House.
Right.
We're making that. I mean, there could be, again, and when we're talking about, Steve Scalise, I believe that, the president said some good things about him. But in going back to Jim Jordan, he just may be a bit too, he makes headlines quite a bit. I think he may just be a bit too radical. But again, we have to also understand that we may be looking at, Nancy Pelosi instead.
Well, it's fascinating, though. You have McCarthy, who now has come out in favor of the wall. He was the pick, when Boehner left to go up the wall, the old whip and such. And now you've got Jim Jordan. So it's fascinating, even coming to Idaho, which is a great place. But again, it's not D.C. when we're talking political activity. We're drawing folks, which has been a rarity in the past.
Yeah, and then it's interesting to see people pass through. But if I had to put, money on it, I'm not really a betting lady, but if it stays in Republican hands, the House, I would bet more on Kevin McCarthy or Steve Scalise than a Jim Jordan. He can run for it. I'm just not seeing it.
Rachel,
sorry, if Jim Jordan's listening.
Well, I'm sure he is. He's in town. Rachel, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Rachel Sutherland talking about Jim Jordan, big man coming to town. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get to your phone calls. We start with our lovable friend, Liberal Steve, on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Good morning, Kevin Miller in Idaho. Good morning to you, Carla. I'm feeling good today, Miller. Feeling better than I have in a long time. I had the blues for quite some time there, but I was shunned by a good friend, but I'm over that now because they told me they'd always be my friend. That was really good, that book. I'm definitely going to pick up that book. the author you had on about the future. I always have faith in Americans, though, like you do, Kevin, that we choose. I think we choose as Americans, and most countries do, but as Americans, I think we always choose whether we fail or whether we succeed. Sometimes we start going down that wrong fork in the road, but we turn it around. Real reason and evidence always kicks in, I think, for Americans. And I think I'm going to write a book about stars, since I and I was talking about. I'm going to call it One Road Through It, History of Stupidity. No, I'm just kidding, Star. Just kidding. Want to say hi to Carla, and that's about it. Oh, Kevin,
right away. Grandma Carla called in yesterday, and you're your biggest fan. You have fans.
Yes. That pumped me up a little there. You're always saying that you're fair and balanced, so I was hoping that maybe Ray would play the sound bites of the new governor of Idaho went down there in Twin Falls when she explained what she meant by when she said the party of love and that she was for.
We've got some sound bites from her coming up. Hopefully we'll get to them today.
And a soundbite of her saying that she never said that people couldn't own AR-15s and that she's in favor of Idahoans that would like to own an AR-15.
Actually, I think I did catch her speech where, she was at the kids' rally against the guns, and I do believe she wanted to get rid of the AR-15s. I do believe hearing that correctly.
But she stated that she
right. It was. I'm for guns, but we need to get rid of the AR-15. I remember hearing that, her words. So now she said she misspoke.
Yes, no, and we all misspoke. Trump says that every other time, right?
The president has never misspoken in his entire life.
Let's be fair and balanced. You stay fired up, Miller, and we'll chat.
We'll see you on the trail, sir.
You got her.
Our great friend, Liberal Steve, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Eventually, we'll get to the major story, your reaction to the packages. Here's Vice President Pence.
I just received a briefing about the suspicious packages that were sent to the Clintons, the Obamas, to CNN, and to others. And let me be clear. We condemn these attempted acts of violence in the strongest possible terms.
We should not mob people in public spaces or destroy public property. There is one way to settle our disagreements. It's called peacefully at the ballot box. That's what we want.
That's a good point, but the media now is blaming the president and you and me and everyone else for the pipe bombs. Hank in Boise, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. That's the point. Going back, when you look at it, the Republicans have always denounced violence of this type. The Democrats condoned it. In other words, even Hillary said they couldn't be civil unless they win one of the houses of Congress. And Maxine Walters inciting it and all this. The media was very silent about it, And I remember as far back as 1963, the Kennedy assassination, and CBS News, Walter Cronkite and Daniel Shore saying that Kennedy's assassination may possibly be at the hands of Texas Goldwater conservatives back in '63, before Oswald was discovered to be the assassin. In that hour or two, Walter Cronkite and those two did all they could to put the blame on conservative Texans. So I see the double game from the media, and I'm suspicious of the timing of this. Isn't this interesting? Another October surprise, and somehow we can now make the argument that violence, this negates the violence on the Democrat side, that the violence is on both sides. I find that kind of convenient. There might be something behind it. I'm not going to rule it out, but something just tells me that there's a smell to this.
No, I would agree with you on this, and really what upsets me here is the fact the rush to blame to the president. And look, it wasn't the conservatives that have had the mob violence that have chased people out of restaurants. We don't know who this is. You go back to Ted Kaczynski, and the Unabomber and everything else. So, let's get back to some truth here. But the media seems to want to blame the president for everything.
Well, and then not only that, but I can't. I'm a student of American history to a certain degree. Violence on the part of Republicans, if there has been, it's been very, very scattered and very, very remote. But you have a long history of violence, political violence by the Democrat Party, going all the way back to Andrew Jackson. I mean, even back to the New York riots of 1863 and the Civil War. The Tweed gang played a role in inciting the Irish in this, and this is a tradition in the Democrat Party for a long time. And how about Gainesboro back in 1876 when they shotgunned the blacks who were attempting to vote? The White Leagues, which was a wing of the Florida Democrat Party. So I mean, this is their history.
Exactly, Hank. Thank you for the call. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up, Max, Steve, Tim, and Ronald with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Sometimes when Ray Amaya just plays the music, you just want to go play the music. Anyway, hope you're having a blessed day. Doing our very best to wake you up on the right side. The place to be heard, KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get to your phone calls. Steve in Meridian. Good morning, Steve.
Hey, Kevin, good morning. Just not surprised by the whole packages thing coming down yesterday. It's interesting, the timing of it. It reminds me of a football team that is a terrible team, and you have to give a speech to say it's us against the world. And I don't know if the Democrats did this to themselves as a ploy, or some rogue person or some person who's a Republican to make the Republicans look bad. But I think the outcome is it's going to give them some emotional, support. And sadly, what that tells me is that this is not a good thing. I condemn violence anyway, but this is not a godly good thing for our nation, because we need, in a majority of cases, I believe we need Republicans in office to better serve our country. So this is going to, I believe, bolster the Democratic vote. What do you think?
Well, the media certainly is doing their very best, Steve, to help it out by blaming Republicans, blaming the president, telling the president he has to dial it back. And this is where the media does a grave disservice to all of us, because they don't cover what happened to Ted Cruz. They don't cover what happened to those congressmen, including Steve Scalise, that were almost killed. They pick sides, and you're right, it could have that impact. And what they're trying to do is to muzzle the president, because the president, and sometimes he says things that are outrageous, but he speaks what people are saying. They might not say it themselves, but he is the voice of the people, and they're doing everything they can to try and get him to shut up. Because you see the crowds, you don't see the crowds for Biden or Obama, and who's to know this guy isn't or gal isn't a radical lefty?
Exactly, and what brings to mind is what exactly you brought up. It seems to me that everybody's blaming the president. I mean, heck, do I blame him because I forgot to tie my shoes before walking out the door? I mean, seriously, at what point in time do people take personal accountability for their lives and stop blaming the president? Stop blaming your neighbors. Stop blaming your family members. Just rise up and be successful in life and stop making excuses. And, ultimately, the president makes decisions, and as do other elected officials that impact my life, but that doesn't define my life. And I got to draw the line. He was not the one that shot those innocent people at these scenarios. He was not the one that, is involved in terrorist attacks. He's just a guy who was elected, and he's working in Washington, D.C. I mean, come on, man,
Exactly. Steve, great insight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning.
Every Gabbard.
And we so appreciate you, Larry. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's see if we can fit in Max. Max, we've got a few minutes, or you can wait. It's up to you.
I'll wait.
All right. Our man, Max. Liberty Linda, Sydney in Boise. We will talk to you coming up. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's see if we can get Sydney in. Sydney, do you want to hit us for 30 seconds, or do you want to wait?
I would hit you for 30 seconds. Everything is about FISA. Wasn't Rosenstein supposed to meet with investigators today, and then everything went crazy with the pipe bombs.
That's a good point.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it.
Great point, Sydney. Thank you for pointing that out on KIDO Talk Radio. Your home for Fox News. Kevin Miller in the morning, Sean Hannity in the afternoons. The place to be heard is KIDO Talk Radio here in the Treasure Valley. Fox News next. Good morning.